We're so grateful for the ones we rely on, who lean back upon us, it seems so strong. But a time comes when there's no one around you. You do all that you can do with your brain and your brawn. Haven't I, better watch where you're going. Look alive, look alive, look alive. Oh, you will find that sometimes all you have, you're beating hard and your two bare hands. You will find that sometimes all you have, you're beating hard and your two bare hands. You're beating hard and your two bare hands. It's a fine line between comfort and callous. We're finding our balance in this tightrope life. And you got good friends who would do anything for you, but you maybe call them when their hands are tied. So haven't I, better watch where you're going. Look alive, look alive, look alive. Oh, you will find that sometimes all you have, you're beating hard and your two bare hands. You will find that sometimes all you have, you're beating hard and your two bare hands. You're beating hard and your two bare hands. Well, I hope the words come when I sing, because I've seen the bright light flicker, fade and swing. Yeah, I've been lucky, my life's been sweet, but it's a stone's throw from my bed to the street. You will find that sometimes all you have, you're beating hard and your two bare hands. You will find that sometimes all you have, you're beating hard and your two bare hands. 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 You're beating hard and your two bare hands.
Well, hello everybody. Tonight we're going to go through our B-sides and rarities. Well, that's what we're calling it anyway. We're going to start off here with a rarity. Wait, I'm holding it upside down. There's a nice haggis head for you all to look at. That's a rarity right there. Pretty weird looking thing. And then you can see, I don't know how we managed to not fall off of the center, but we are hanging on there. And there are 3 songs on here, and the first one was written by an 18-year-old Brian Buchanan, and it's called December Ends. So maybe you want to talk about this one, Brian.
Well, sure. So for me, the experience of recording this was really exciting because it was my first time really going into a professional recording studio. It was a place called Chemical Sound in Toronto. And, you know, I'd done a few recording things leading up to this where I guested or I'd just done a session or something, but this is the first time going into a studio to record something that I'd written. And it must have been pretty early in my tenure with the band because we did aerials in the fall of 2001, I guess. And I joined in the fall of 2000. So this was somewhere in the middle of that, somewhere.
So it was done in 2001. So we were at that time, yeah, you were then a new guy. Well, Mark was actually newer than you were at the time when we recorded this, because Mark joined in, I think, February of 2001.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So, yeah, this was kind of when Brian came up with this, we all thought, oh, this is pretty awesome. This is a different thing altogether. We've never had anything like this before. We better record this. I remember we got down to the studio, Chemical Sound, and this was recorded on 24-track tape. So it wasn't digital. So we had to, you kind of have to get it right first time. And it didn't take too many takes to get it, as I recall. Those of you who've read the introduction on the Cheers and Echoes double album will know that through the wall from that place was it was an auto shop was through the wall. They were fixing cars in there. So you'd try to record something, and then you'd hear somebody on the loudspeaker, or you'd hear a fender getting straightened out or something like that. Not too often, but it did happen.
I'd never seen anybody editing on tape before, which is something that obviously was the standard way to edit. And I remember doing the vocals on December Ends, and I think I did 3 takes, and then he went through and comped, which means you take the best parts of each take and you create one final take. In Pro Tools or Logic or Reaper or any of these programs, it's a super easy, non-destructive process, and you can always go back and change your edits if you want. You have all these things. He would set it up so that he could play from the 3 tracks on the tape to a 4th track, and he was so good that he could punch individual syllables as it went. So there was no tuning, there was no digital editing, but he could just punch individual syllables from my vocal performance and create this one final track. And I remember just being totally fascinated watching him do it. It was a crazy thing.
I had forgotten that. I'm glad you reminded me of that. I had forgotten that experience, but it's true. The tape and the punching in the tiny bits and pieces of things, it was pretty remarkable to see. As you said, it was my first time in a recording studio as well, a professional recording studio, and it's like, oh, this is how that works. This is how that happens. It was very much a learning experience. It was you don't go in there knowing what you're doing, really. You know how to play your instrument, but I knew nothing about recording. It's like, I know how to play this, sort of. Someone record this, please, and show me how.
Trev, do you remember what guitar and amp you would have been playing in these sessions? Because this is something a lot of people probably don't know. When Trevor joined Enter the Haggis as the electric guitar player, he didn't own an amplifier.
That's right.
When I got the gig, I went down to Church and Queen. There were a bunch of pawn shops there, which I'm sure we were all frequented from one point or another. But I got this sweet little Fender Telecaster there, a 1992 Telecaster. And that was my main / only guitar for the first number of years. And I love that guitar. Telecaster's kind of a twangy, country or rock and roll guitar. I just found the only reason I stopped playing that after a while was that the pipes and fiddle are all they're way up in that higher register. So a guitar that was a little had a fuller sound seemed to work better, fill some more of those frequencies. But it would have been that Fender Telecaster, I'm sure. I don't think I used anybody else's guitar doing it. And I picked up that little the Fender Hot Rod Deluxe, which I still play to this day, shortly after. I don't think I had it for that. It was after playing at the Horseshoe. The sound guy there suggested I get a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe, and that's really been the only amp I've played.
Well, you had the Marshall stack for a while.
That's right. I did have that.
I remember like these small pubs and listening to December Ends. I remember times where I had even a 410 at times. It was 4 speakers for a bass cabinet, and I couldn't compete with your Marshall because it was so there was so much low end coming off of it. So you had the Marshall for a while anyway.
I'll formally apologize now for that.
Didn't you have a Mesa Boogie for a short while?
This is completely off topic, but I think people will find it interesting. Trevor, tell people the story of when you and I lived at Clinton Street and we had a bunch of gear ripped off out of the van, which was parked out back of the house.
That's right, yeah. I had insurance on the gear, so I I got some insurance money, and then went to the music store and got some new gear, and that's when I tried out some different amplifiers. But the interesting thing was that the amp was located. I don't know how many months later, but it was sometime later. The store actually this particular music store down the street, they were the ones who actually got the amp back. Some guy came in trying to sell it, and they had their practice was to, check out hold it for a few days and check the serial number on it. And sure enough, it was. I guess I'd given them the serial number on the amplifier, and I called the insurance company, and they said that it never happens that music gear is found. So there's nothing we can do. So I got my old amp back, and I was able to keep. I got another amp at the same time.
I recall the number. I think you're the only person I've ever known in my life who did everything above board and didn't commit fraud and made $1,700 on getting your amp stolen.
It was a bad place, Brian. The place Brian and I shared. Well, Mark, we took it over from Mark and his crew, but it was an old kind of Victorian semi-detached on Clinton Street in Toronto, and it was just kind of a cheap student housing kind of thing. The backyard was just wild, and we had the van parked back there.
The house would shake every 5 minutes when the subway would go down because it was right underneath.
Yeah.
That's right.
It was a 3-bedroom house, and I think, Trevor, at one point we were living there, there was at least 6 people living there full time.
I just remember our friend Roger. He thought he did made out well by getting the entire basement to himself. He had a room and an ensuite. Bathtub and toilet, but the toilet was they'd replaced the floor several times in the toilet, so the toilet between the seat of the toilet and the floor was only maybe a foot high, so your knees were if you sat down were up at your ears, and the bathtub was just stained with what looked like blood. I have no idea.
I don't know. It was rust and hair dye, and I don't know what else down there, but it was horrifying. People would come in to see the house, and they would go downstairs, and they would come back running up the stairs and just leave. And when we left that house, it had been so taken over by mice that Trevor, who had one of the nicest rooms sort of on the second floor, our landlord was a complete slumlord, absentee landlord. He didn't want to do anything with the house. And Trevor finally moved all of his stuff out of the house the day we were leaving, swept all the mouse shit into a pile in the middle of the floor, and stuck a little white flag on a toothpick into the pile and just left it. We were just surrendering the house to the rodents. It was amazing.
There were some bold mice in there. They'd be up. They would stare you right in the eye from on top of the refrigerator.
I think Phil was feeding them. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a guy there named Phil, bass player.
The one haggis-related Phil story that's so amazing is...
Oh, I know. It's CHCH.
Time, I don't remember if it was in the time between Rob being on bass and Mark officially joining, or if it was just something that Mark couldn't make it to for some reason. But
in the early days of Mark, he couldn't necessarily make it to every gig, as I recall. He was at most of them, but every once in a while someone would come to you who already booked at something else or something going on.
So one of the things that Phil filled in for was this appearance on CHCH television. And they had just put in this new virtual set, which was basically just a giant blue screen, or most often, the chroma key stuff, it's a green screen, but in this case it was blue. So it was this huge blue screen, and they told us to just go into this room and play, and then they would superimpose a virtual set behind us to make it look really high tech. And this is in, 2000 maybe, so it was pretty ahead of its time, technologically speaking, but they hadn't ironed out all the bugs. And
well, they did tell us don't wear anything blue, and I think And we didn't pass that on to Phil. I can't remember.
No, we absolutely passed that on to Phil. It was the only rule, was you weren't allowed to wear anything blue. And the reason is, the way that Chroma Key works is they will digitally remove everything that's the same color as the walls behind. So you don't wear anything that color, and then the computer just gets rid of all the blue. And so they said, don't wear any blue, because if you do, it's going to remove it, and there's going to be a hole through your body. So we all very dutifully decided not to wear any blue, except Phil, who showed up wearing like blue jeans and blue socks, I think.
No.
No,
He
it was
wore
a
the
kilt
dog
over the
blanket.
jeans.
Well, no, he showed up.
Oh, he showed up wearing blue jeans.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And then we got him a makeshift kilt, which was a dog blanket, a tartan, like a plaid dog blanket from Craig's car. And I don't know how we fixed it to him, duct tape or a belt or.
But the problem was he still had blue socks, and they were the only socks that he had.
Yeah.
So what wound up happening is we start playing, and it pans over to Phil, and he's standing there in this dog blanket, but from the bottom of the dog blanket to the ground were his blue socks, which got removed. So it looks like he's floating around on top of this dog blanket like a UFO, and he would just kind of float in and out of scenes while we were playing. And there was a glitch with their virtual set. And so as you're watching, like in the middle of a line, all of a sudden it would be like we all stayed in place, but the entire room turned like 30 degrees. And then, the room turns 30 degrees, and then Phil floats through with no feet in this dog blanket. It was the most incredible thing. And
it was a comedy of errors, for sure.
Okay, so we're going to get to some music. This is a song that did wind up appearing on our first album altogether, which was the first album that those of us who are here right now were all on, which is called Aerials. And this is a song I wrote probably when I was 17, living in Orangeville. So it would have been the first song I wrote that I brought to the band, I think. And this is called December Ends.
Sorry, did I startle you? My face was to the mirror. Broken wings are lovely things. They can lead you nearer. In every cloud there is some silver. Every shadow comes from light, yeah. But something takes my hands and makes the wrong in me alright. Shining one, you're the sun, and I am burning up inside you. Shadows fly on winds of pride, and if I follow, I will find you. Silent one, oh, I whisper through you. I inside you.
My dad was on tour for 7 weeks and got home the day before I was born. Where was the last show they played?
Okay, so the next song on the 3-song special is Scotland the Brave / Havanagila. It really captures kind of how we were and where we were at that point. The way I ended up introducing this song is like a poor man's Monty Python. And
don't give it away, Craig. Don't give it away.
I don't want to give it all away, but I'll just let you hear it. And the terminology used at the beginning to direct the mass bands is actually the terminology or the command that I have heard from a drum major before. So yeah, well, I'll leave that with you.
I remember this was a staple for a long time in live performances. Like, I think the second set would begin with the song every show for a long time.
Usually this into Lanigan's Ball.
Yeah, that's right.
My memories of playing this are fairly blurry, except for one. There is one memorable performance of this song that sticks out in my head. And I don't remember what year it was, but it was a few years in, because we weren't playing this song as often. And we got invited to play at a fundraiser for a charity called Gilda's Club, which is a charity that was put together in memory of Gilda Radner of SCTV. It was like a who's who of all kinds of celebrities. I mean, like, you know, B and C list celebrities for the most part. But it was a variety show. And so, like, Eric McCormick from Will and Grace came in and sang a song. Ryan Malcolm, who was the first Canadian Idol, was hired to come in and perform. So we had been asked to play this because somebody, was it Fred Levy, Craig? Somebody had heard our version of Scotland the Brave and Havanagila.
Yeah, Fred Levy was he was involved in putting the whole thing together. And Fred Levy is an accountant in Toronto, and of course his brother is Eugene Levy. So it did come through. Somehow it came through Fred Levy.
We were asked to play just one song, and we were the kickoff of the whole show. And this is in the Princess of Wales Theatre in Toronto, which seats like 3,500. It's like, it was completely sold out, packed full. And the idea was they were going to have somebody, I forget who it was, walk out first and try to play the bagpipes kind of badly. And then the curtain was going to go up, and it was us standing there in our kilts, and we were going to play this whole song and completely rock out. And then at the end, as soon as we hit our last note, the divider was going to come back down And as it closed, we were supposed to just stand there and wait till the divider came down and hit the stage, at which point the show would continue in front of the divider. And we did it. We were there for the rehearsal. Everything went perfectly. It was all good. In the actual show, we played through this song, which is like this 2.5-minute high-intensity punk rock screaming thing, which nobody in that audience was expecting, I can tell you. We finished, and there was, you know, the polite applause of the wealthy theater goers, and we stood there frozen, and the divider didn't come down. And we stood there waiting, and it was probably no more than a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity.
It was at least a year. It was no less than a year. I refuse to accept any estimate of time that was less than a year.
Standing there in front of like 3,500 people, and I remember we were waiting for the lights to go down or this thing to come down or something to happen. Nothing was happening. We're standing there, and it was just like Spinal Tap. I finally went, "Thank you," put my hand up and turned, and the lights all went off.
I remember our because we had a few tickets too, so we had gave them to our wives and girlfriends and whatnot, and who I think they overheard people in the audience. That was terrible.
I remember, to my recollection, we did a piss poor job of performing too. Like, we couldn't hear anything. The monitor situation was a complete disaster. It was this huge boomy room that, like, you couldn't hear any of the kind of near field stage stuff you expect to hear. I think we probably spread ourselves out good and wide as well. I don't remember that for sure, but I just kind of imagine we might have. But I remember being like totally unable to hear.
Yeah.
And we were like playing, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't hear anything. All I can do is just put the blinders on and hope people are following me, because I can't hear anything anyone else is doing. And I remember it being a fairly train wreck performance.
And the other performers, although they were sort of B and C list celebrities, they were, you know, cast of Whose Line Is It Anyways? Like Colin Mockery was there. And
a brief story about that. I know it has nothing to do with music, but I remember, because I know those Whose Line Is It Anyways guys from the TV show, and you always see Colin Mockery and that guy Ryan Stiles work together, and you see Ryan Stiles towers over Colin Mockery. You know, Ryan's got to be a pretty tall guy. But anyway, I remember feeling Colin was the little short guy who always worked with the tall guy. Colin Mockery walked by me in the hall. He was taller than me. I'm not a monstrously tall guy, but I'm 6'1.5". And so, like, all I could think of, I saw, there's Colin Mockery. The only thought that went through my head is, oh my God, Ryan Stiles must be a giant.
And the other person who was there, one of you guys can relate the story of her performance, and where if by some chance the story gets back to somebody who knows her or knows of her, we apologize in advance. But one of the other performers was Lucy Lawless, who at the time was famous for Xena Warrior Princess and hadn't been on Spartacus Blood and Sand yet, I don't think. But she had decided to perform a Bare Naked Ladies song that hadn't been released yet. The backup band for all of the performers was this band, the Dexters. These guys can play anything. And so the idea was show up for sound check, give them the charts, play through your song. If you need a second run through it the second time, but that's it. Well, for one reason or another, Lucy Lawless missed the sound check. And it turned out that the song she was going to play was pretty complicated. It had like sections in 5/4 time, and it was a couple of key changes, and it was a little wacky and weird. And as we mentioned, the monitor situation wasn't great. I remember going to the side of the stage to watch her performance, and just, I don't think she made it through the first verse before she got lost, and then the band got lost, and then she tried to come back in, and then the band didn't know what was happening, and they went to a key change, and she didn't go to a key change, and then she just stopped trying to sing and just started apologizing to the audience over and over again through the microphone.
But the worst part was that she had the Bare Naked Ladies on the phone. She had called them, and I guess, I don't know if she gave them the heads up, I'm going to be performing this song from your new record or whatnot. But anyway, they were on the phone. They had speakerphone going. So they must have felt something.
It was memorable. It was memorable.
I forget his last name, that Greg guy from Whose Line Is It Anyways?
Greg Proops.
Yeah, eventually I think he took pity on her and kind of came on clapping and allowed the band to kind of grind to a halt and like kind of ushered her off stage and tried to keep the show going. But oh my God, it was, And I remember it really clearly because I never really got to talk to him, but I was standing right next to Eric McCormick from Will and Grace, and he was also standing there watching this performance, and all he said the entire time was, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." Okay, there. That's all of our celebrity name dropping we can do for our entire career, but that was it right there.
But for all of our Celtic fans out there, I do remember Natalie McMaster played that same show as well. I remember chatting with her in the after party downstairs. I don't know if it was just her or if it was her and her husband, but she was there as well and did a killer job, obviously. But
yeah, that was a weird night, a weird couple nights. But that is the experience of performing this song that sticks out most clearly in my mind, and I imagine it will stay that way. Well, I guess we can head on to some more music then, unless anybody's got anything else they remember about this one. This is, as James said, this is a staple on the set for the first few years that I was in the band, and this might be your only place to hear it nowadays. This is called Scotland the Brave / Hava Nagila.
Mass bands! By the centre! Beat off!
The penny red was the main British postal stamp that replaced the penny black postal stamp. What was the reason for changing the stamp color from black to red?
Okay, the next song, the final song from the old 3-song sampler we did way back, is the song called Aerials, which later appeared on the album by the same title, Aerials, which has already been alluded to as the first album this particular lineup of the band all did together. The name comes from the fact that the song is actually a combination of 2 Celtic traditional styles of an air and a reel. Air and then followed by reels. So since it was an air called Song for Graham Alexander, written by Michael Gray, and then followed up by reels, in this case Dr. McKinnis' Fancy, it seemed to lend itself right into the name Aerials, and since so many song titles and themes on the album of the same name all had that kind of, at least many of them had a sort of celestial or aerial connection, one kind of seemed an appropriate name to stick with the song. So anyway, that's where the name of the song comes from. I will throw it to Craig to explain to you a little bit more.
Well, I didn't really have anything else to say about it.
Well, then I will say, because we didn't actually say this, and I'd kind of forgotten, in the Aerials talk, as James mentioned, we went up calling the album Aerials because a lot of the songs did have that kind of theme, but especially a lot of the instrumentals. Aerials obviously kind of refers to activity in the sky. The song Star of the County Down is on that album. We just called it Star. Arcturus is, if I recall, the third closest star to Earth.
Third brightest star in the sky.
Third brightest star in the sky. Sunburst, yeah. And Craig's instrumental, Lochran Achnam Bocht, right, Craig?
Yeah, the lamp of the poor, referring to the moon.
And Icarus was a song written about the Greek myth of Icarus and Daedalus, so Icarus flying through the sky and getting too close to the sun. So I think almost inadvertently a lot of the songs might have having that theme.
I think this song, in some ways, encapsulates something that I really like about Enter the Haggis over the years. I think this is one of the early instrumentals to be recorded, at least anyway. I mean, there were a couple of instrumentals on Aerials, obviously it wasn't the only one, but I think it's very, I don't know, it sets the tone, I think, for this sort of style with which this band approached a lot of its instrumental songs. You know, it's sort of finding its way through how to blend Celtic style with rock music in a way that wasn't, you know, I don't know, cheesy, you know, in a way that wasn't very higgledy-piggledy, as Craig would call it. You know, and so to me, this is the sort of the opening of that book.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it's still one that's a lot of fun to play. So we're going to get back to some music. This one is called Aerials.
Okay, we're now on to a new song that we never actually released. Did we actually release this? I don't think we did we?
No,
Never did.
never did.
So we played it live many times for probably a summer. It's called E minor jam, I think is what we call it. I'm not sure if we had a different name for it. And it's probably one of the 2 songs that I've ever had to make a bass solo in. And
That's
no
right.
one ever needs a bass solo, so that's probably why
Everyone needs a bass solo.
But yeah, no, it was a fun song to play, and I think a lot of times, even still now, like how many years later, if I'm warming up, I'll kind of play that groove from E to A, and then it's a common progression, but it's a fun thing to play. But it was fun to play when we did it.
I think I don't know. There's 2 things about this song. One, I think it's the only song that was in contention and rejected for 2 albums. Like, 'cause it was in contention for Soapbox Heroes and got cut, and it was in contention again for Gutter Anthems and got cut. And I don't know what the live version, if that's what you're going to play, has. But one of the striking differences to me between the demo that was recorded for Soapbox and then the demo that was recorded for Gutter, there are a few differences. I think all improvements, but I hope the live version, if that's what you play, has it, because the latter version, for the last, like, I don't know if it's 8 or 16 bars, it goes to this different not syncopated, but like locked in thing between the guitar and the bass. And I remember Dave Schultz saying this. I hope I don't misquote him, but when we had redone it, that end part was like, that was the Enter the Haggis sound kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? And when I go back and listen to this, I listen to the early version, and I agree with you, Brian. I think that it's like, yeah, there's something here. We were trying to do something with this. There was this. I like this song. I pushed for it to be on both albums. I was one of the leading contenders. Like, no, put it on. I think it was probably the right decision not to put it on in hindsight, but I pushed for it at the time because I really liked this song, and I still like it. And I agree with you, Brian. I don't think we quite carried it off as well as we would like to, or as well as it should have been carried off. But in the latter version, which I hope is on the live version, the last like 16 bars, like that's what Enter the Haggis sounds like, or that captures the Enter the Haggis approach to instrumental Celtic music.
It was Enter the Haggis trying to be Muse for 16 bars, I think, basically.
I guess maybe.
or I'm Mother Earth, or one of those bands. But it was that cool, this syncopated riff rock thing between the bass and the guitar that was very much like I'd been listening to Absolution by Muse, and I think Trevor had too, for quite a lot at that point. And so it was that just, I think we felt like the song just kept building and building and building and building, and then we had to change keys to get the bagpipes in. And so the whole song changes keys to A and goes through that kind of main melody once, and then we went back to E, and that's when we went into the heavy riff, and yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it is there on the live.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's the part. I mean, I like a lot of elements about this song. I wish it had been carried off a little bit better. I wish we'd found the right way to do it. But I do feel like when it locks into that, when it drops in there for that last run out of things, like, yeah, that's what this, that's what this was missing. That's where it goes to a place that we kind of bring it back to. Now we know what we're doing.
That's it, yeah. We're trying all these different styles and all these different ideas, and there's a bass solo and there's a jazz keyboard solo, and it's like, here we go. All right. Well, I am going to play, the version that I'm going to play is actually a version we found on YouTube rather than one of the demos that we recorded, because it's probably a more complete version than the demos were, just because we actually been playing it for a while and we kind of got comfortable with it. Audio quality is not amazing, video quality is not amazing, but it's kind of fun because it's a live version from a period in time of a song that we never wound up releasing. And it was recorded at the John Boyle O'Reilly Club in Springfield, Massachusetts, run by the nicest group of people you would ever meet in your life. And if you live in that area and they're doing that festival next year, make sure you go down there.
Well, for example, we had our van broken into. And
a lot of these stories tonight, right? There's a lot of these van broken into stories.
Anyway, they drove our van. They took our van. They got it fit, the windshield fixed. They drove us all over the place and everything, and they just went so out of their way to, you know, do everything they possibly could for us. Great people.
Salt of the earth. Awesome dudes. All right, so you will be seeing our performance at that festival, and we hope you enjoy it. And this one is called E minor.
We're going to have to call it the John Boyle O'Reilly Club Shuffle, because we don't really know much about John Boyle O'Reilly, and I'm sure many of you can fill us in on the history. I only know two things. He was a great Irishman with a great mustache. You tell me the rest later. So here's to him. I'm sure he was a fine man.
Well, so much for that one. There's a storm coming in here, and I got to get out somewhere, out of the rain. The next trivia question. At this time of year, in August, had there not been a pandemic, I would have been over in Scotland, competing with the local pipe band which I play with, which is the Durham Regional Police Pipe Band. And the trivia question is, in which city are the World Pipe Band Championships held?
Hello. Our next song is Salvation from our Penny Red release. And this was a song that we recorded up in Maine around the same time, at the same time as we recorded the other songs from our Penny Black album. And this is one that we kind of jammed out a fair bit together to kind of come up with the feel. I played sort of a military march kind of a thing through the intro of the song and the verses and the outro, and then it kind of morphs into more of a rocker. Although this wasn't on our Penny Black release, this is the one song from that period that we play on a pretty regular basis. I think we all enjoy playing it, and it goes over well. Does anyone want to jump in on the story? This was from one of the letters that we received, right? I thought it was from Pat and Claire Ryan from Chicago.
Yeah, the main idea was it was a story of a guy who fought overseas in the First World War, and then came back to the streets of New York, suffering from post-traumatic stress, and it was the Salvation Army that helped this guy get back on his feet. He was actually from Nova Scotia originally, but when he came back after the war, he came back to New York, and it was the Salvation Army helped him get back home to start his life over again. It was Craig's idea from the get-go. He kind of brought the song to the band, and then he and I ended up working on it a bunch. Even when we got out to we stayed in a beautiful cottage overlooking a lake in Maine when we were recording this record. You know, we'd all, Bruce and Craig and I anyway, had driven from Canada. We may have stopped overnight, but it's a heck of a drive anyway. But Mark had stocked the fridge with some local microbrews. So I don't know I forget what it was. Bissell Brothers, Allagash. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, it was perfect. Pulled in there late at night, found the key, locked ourselves out on the second floor deck, crawled down, somehow scaled down the cottage. Anyway, that beer, those cold beers went down real good. But it's been a fun song, and I do love the interplay between the guitar and the bass, especially through the intro and outro of the song. Super cool.
Mark's bass line in this is especially cool. I remember when we were working on editing the song in the studio, it broke our hearts because there was just so many tasty licks on the bass. And we didn't want to cut any of them as we were comping, because he played it slightly differently each time. And as we were comping, we would grab the coolest parts. But because he played cool bits in different spots on each take, if we kept all of them, it would have just sounded like a bass solo the entire song. And it kind of took away, when we did it that way, from the focus on the lyrics and the story and things. But we just agonized over what to leave in and what we had to excise, because there were so many tasty licks that we had to leave on the cutting room floor.
I had to run to the bathroom. What song are we talking about?
The tasty lick.
What song is my bass part so cool on? I have definitely reimagined that bass part since that recording, and I wish I could go back. But I'm happy with the recording. Every time we play it live, I play it differently.
It is a blast to play live, because it kind of feels when we play it live like we're all still improvising a little bit. Like we do it a little bit differently every time. And there's not a lot of songs we do that kind of feel like that for me. We also had Dan Patton play the Hammond B3 That's right.
That's right. The folks who wrote the letter in, that was Claire and
Pat.
Pat.
Yeah.
They came to the studio. We invited a whole bunch of people to the studio for the sort of sing play on the record day, and they came and they brought a friend of theirs, Dan.
And yeah, he's part of their cohort.
And he ended up playing some keys on the track. That's right. That was cool.
He was a Hammond organ specialist, and there's an amazing Hammond organ at the studio, and like, I can play an organ because it's a keyboard, but people who really know how the Hammond organ works, there's just so much to that instrument, just different little tricks and different sounds and how you use the drawbars. And he was a master. And I think we gave him like 2 takes or something. And so, I forgot, that's the organ you hear on there.
And I don't think we talked about it during our Penny Black listening deal, but Pat actually played some percussion on that album for us. He did tambourine on Steady, and then he played these big drums. I don't remember, maybe they were just toms or something on Astray. We did a whole sort of tribal drum thing, and clicking the sides of the shells and playing. So anyway,
that's right. So this one is a fun kind of jam track. This is called Salvation.
On my side.
The next track on Penny Red is a fun, fairly Celtic sounding song called Rosalie. And I'm going to read what I wrote for the coffee table book that we put out around this time, which was sort of my description of the inspiration for the song, but then I'll follow that up with a little bit of extra inspiration. So what I said in the coffee table book was that the lyrics were initially inspired by an anonymous letter, which was sent to us by someone who had developed a relationship with a total stranger who she only saw at bicycle races. They would fall in beside one another and ride for miles and miles, never speaking, but mutually enjoying one another's company. They gradually got to know one another. Both were married, and the friendship never became anything inappropriate, but there was a sense of longing and a sense of loss in the letter that really spoke to me. I imagined her standing on the street, watching him race by for the final time, and I came up with the chorus lyrics, which are, I'm just another person going bye, bye, bye. And I've often found myself in situations where I've met someone, but the timing isn't right. One of us isn't available in one sense or another, and our private little Venn diagrams never quite intersect at the right points. So that's kind of where the inspiration for the song came from. And I was kind of going through a situation like that myself at the time. In my head, this song was always more kind of a bittersweet reflection on a relationship that would never be and could never be. And thankfully, it didn't turn out that way. We've been married for 3 years now, so what the hell do I know, right? But that's kind of where the inspiration for this song came from. Trevor suggested taking the song somewhere else entirely, and it goes to that kind of slow 6/8 ballady kind of feel in the middle for a little bit before it builds back in. Well, we've played this live a fair number of times, although not kind of recently. It's one that I always kind of forget about when we're writing set lists, but maybe it's something we can resurrect once in a while too. Especially now that Rose is on stage with us and she can play that fiddle part. It all comes full circle. So this one's called Rosalie.
Rosalie, you can think it oh so well every day, but not with me. And it's all a game, shaking hands and taking names, while every hour goes on for days. Rosalie, Rosalie, someday soon I hope you'll see I'm just another person going by. Just another person going by, 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 by. And I know you're gonna be far away, Rosalie. Not alone, but not with me, not today. And I'm okay, 'cause we both know there's no point going slow, and we're both aware that life is rushing by. Rosalie, Rosalie, someday soon I hope you'll see I'm just another person going by, by, by. Maybe you don't agree, but I know what's good for me. I'm just another person going by. But I'm weak, and it's easy to fall, even while we laugh at the madness of it all. So I'll pass by your place from time to time, and I know you'll see
I think this was put together by Brian and Tim Abraham. Is that right?
That is correct. Yep.
Yeah. Man, this is a beautiful thing. I was listening to it, and I hadn't really given it a proper listen, but the other day, put on a pair of headphones to listen to it, and one of the things that I really love about it is it's so Celtic, so very Irish, Scottish sounding, and the way the strings emulate an uilleann bagpipe, like an Irish bagpipe, just blows me away. I think it's a really beautiful piece.
Well, thanks, man. So I wrote this in some recording sessions that I did with Tim before we recorded Gutter Anthems, I think, or maybe just after. And it was just catalog stuff. We were writing for TV shows. So he would basically just throw a genre at me and just let me run around the studio grabbing different instruments and just kind of making stuff up. And he would play some guitar parts or some banjo or dobro parts or things. And the idea was to just spend a couple days and come out with as many short clips of music as possible that could then be placed in like Discovery Channel shows and things. And I think this one actually did. I think the weird thing about this track is that I think I wrote it as I played it. I think I just basically said, he said, can you give me something kind of like Ashokan Farewell, which is the Civil War Ken Burns documentary theme song. And I think I did like one take through and just kind of made the melody up as I played it. And we both liked it. And so I went over, the reedy instrument you hear in there is called a pump organ. And it was just this little machine that he had where there's literally like bellows at your feet that you have to kind of crank back and forth to keep the air going through. And so I played along on that to get that kind of droney sound, which almost sounds like a hurdy-gurdy. And then just went back and did a couple of like harmony tracks. And it was over real quick. It's funny, I mean, we were talking about this during Gutter Anthems. Yeah, I guess this must have been after Gutter, because before Gutter, I did one of those sessions with him, and that's where Albatross came from. Was a similar kind of thing, just like writing to a genre, and sometimes when you don't think about it too much, something kind of cool can come out. But we've performed this once live, and Rose and I just walked out on stage and played it together at a show shortly before quarantine started.
Yeah, it would be nice to have that happen again. Maybe we could work on it a little bit, maybe get some keys going. Not a lot of chords in there.
Mm-hmm.
Have we ever used this as like intro music as we're coming out on stage?
I don't think so.
I really enjoyed hearing this the other day as well, and I was thinking it could be perfect for that sort of application as well.
Yeah, totally. And it actually works better. We tried doing that with Albatross, but the problem with Albatross is it's in F sharp minor. So there's very few songs in our catalog that we could go straight into if we walked on stage, although Archer's Parade would work, I was thinking, because that's in F sharp minor. This one's called Red Letter.
Penny Red was our first vinyl release. Vinyl albums are made to play at 3 speeds, 33 1/3 revolutions per minute, 45 revolutions per minute, and more unusually, a third, which is what? The next tune we're talking about here is a song called Jefferson Drive. And I wrote a little bit about the song in the coffee table book, so I'll just read what I wrote there. I'm honored to have been able to write a song about Emily Fogg and grateful to Amy, who is her mom, for sending in this letter and the book of stories from Emily's life. I can only hope that this song is a fitting tribute. The line, running like a rabbit, is in reference to Emily's wheelchair that she would crank up to full rabbit. She worked at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., which is on Jefferson Drive. I Can Hear You Laughing from a Mile Down the Hall is in reference to one of her co-workers talking about her amazing sense of humor. I wish we could share the entire book of her life stories with people in the coffee table book. But yeah, it's, you know, I got a couple kids too, and yeah, I just couldn't imagine, yeah, losing your child. You know, it's just obviously the worst thing that can possibly happen to somebody. And for her mom to share this information with, you know, with us, and sort of entrust us with it, you know, to either write a song or not. Yeah, I was just very, it was kind of a humbling experience.
I really like the interplay of the piano and trumpet in this song in particular. There's a lot of spots where Craig and I are kind of echoing each other between like octaves in my right hand and what he's playing on the trumpet.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember this one being a beast. Like, we went through a bunch of different versions, tried to figure out like how to build the choruses and how to build to the outro. And I think that outro, we actually wound up adding fairly late, that whole key change with the, yeah, you'll go far, like all that. It always reminds me of like a Fix You by Coldplay.
I thought it was a great song. I thought it was a great tribute to Emily, and I think we did a really good job. The drums are particularly vibrant. They really stand out. Very, very nice. Great lyrics. It was pretty demanding to play on the trumpet for me. Just, I don't know why I hadn't really been playing a ton of trumpet before I got into the studio for it. And I remember just kind of hanging in there going, come on, lips. Don't let me down.
I think there's like I'm playing a sort of a standard floor tom that you would see on any regular drum set with my right hand. But I think earlier in the song, I bring in this, what you would call, I guess, a drum set pandero. Pandero is like a Brazilian tambourine with a head on it. Anyway, this one is kind of meant to be played.
James is getting excited.
I'm trying to mind my own business here.
James is still hanging out, but we can all see his face as he gets excited about the Pandera.
Yeah, if you can picture a tambourine with a skin on it, it still has the jingles around the outside, but it has some mounting hardware on it, so you can mount it to a stand or something, and it's meant to be played with a stick. And I got this from a great New Orleans drummer named Stanton Moore, who does this. But that's what you're hearing, and it's tuned down really low. Has this thuddy sound, but with sort of the, you know, the jingling of the jingles.
Well, we will get back to the music then. This one's called Jefferson Drive.
Running like a rabbit down Jefferson Drive. No second squandered, a mission in your mind. Everybody knows you're never gonna be
So the next song is Buy a Car. This is one that we'd put together for the Modest Revolution. So it was supposed to be something that would have originated in a newspaper, and it is. We had a lot of interesting songs that came along. I mean, Footnote, which was about an obituary, and Brian put that one together. So I thought, well, we don't have anything that's like an ad. So I was flipping around and said, oh, here's one. Well, maybe I'll try and write a song that could have been written by a used car salesman. So it kind of, it took off from that. It starts off like, buy a car, buy a, a luxury car. It's, it sounds good. But as you start going along, he's starting to appeal to anybody. I'm sure there's something we could give you on a trade-in. That was your line, Brian. So we used that. And then all the other corny things that a used car salesman might say, like a bumper crop of beauties, time to change your gear, all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of a riot to make, and you can hear me singing falsetto in the background behind Trevor's lead. And the whole idea is that it kind of chugs along, and at the end it sounds like a complete jalopy because you hear Bruce. I don't know what you were hitting at the end, but it just kind of tails off of the, sounds like, chitty chitty bang bang or something. It's like, at the end. Yeah,
I kind of thought of it as having sort of a Tom Waits kind of vibe, Yeah, so I was trying to get kind of that sort of herky-jerky lilt throughout the song, yeah, and then it sort of peters out at the end.
I don't think I've ever heard you sing anything else, Trevor, that sounded this, like, tired and ragged kind of thing. It's a cool vocal. It actually, it suits the song really well.
Yeah, it's fun. I like the drums changing to double time, and when it happens there. It's. I remember you putting some real effort into some real thought into the way that the drums should sound on it.
I had that this giant bass drum that I bought on eBay that someone had covered in stained glass faux plastic material.
Yeah.
And then there were all these lights sort of on the inside. It still had the original calfskin heads on it. It's long gone now, though. It was a bit of a nightmare to sort of deal with, but it looked cool, and it kind of fit the sort of the aesthetic of the song with this kind of lo-fi sort of clunker.
Yeah. Well, it probably holds the distinction of being the shortest thing that we've ever released. I think it's like
1:19.
Yeah, 1:19.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Super short and sweet. Just kind of like it almost sounds like you're surfing by and you just get the commercial on television and then it's over again. Well, it's cool. It's been fun to hear it again. This one's called Buy a Car.
Your lovely smile's in the side view mirror. You're getting older, but you're good behind the wheel. This baby's everything you know you were expecting. The luxury that you deserve and can afford. Buy a car. Please buy a car. I'm sure there's something we could give you on a trade-in. Check out this bumper crop of beauties over here. 0.5 financing, you could drive yourself a bargain. Don't wait, accelerate, it's time to change your gear. Buy a car. Please buy a car.
The next song is Sycamore, which is track 7 off of Penny Red. What do you guys remember about recording this one?
What I remember about Sycamore is the process of writing this song. We wound up going through so many different versions of this song. And I think we were working on it in Thomas, West Virginia at the Purple Fiddle, which I guess would have been in preparation for the Modest Revolution or even maybe Gutter Anthems. It might have been that far back. I remember we played 3 nights in a row or something. And I think each night we played it in sound check, and then we would change something, and then we would play it in the show, and then we would all look at each other and be like, no, that didn't work. And so the next day in sound check, we would play it a different way and change something, and then we would go. And so we kind of went through all these different iterations, and I wish there had been somebody at those shows who recorded each version of Sycamore as they went by, because it probably changed pretty wildly. There would have been little arrangement changes, little part changes, sections cut, sections extended, and we finally came out with it. And it is one that I've heard from more than one Haggis fan is their favorite Enter the Haggis song.
It's one the way we tend to play at the performing arts centers more than anything else. Some of our really hard-hitting catalog stuff doesn't fit so well in those places, and it's a good kind of sing-along 4-part vocal harmonies and all that kind of stuff.
I can remember doing it actually at the Gray Eagle in Asheville when we were still sort of workshopping it and messing with the form. Where is this recording from? Does anyone know? I remember recording it probably more than once, but I'm not sure where this actual recording is pulled from.
Did you record this, Bruce?
I don't know, but I'd like to re-record it. I feel like the feel is a little off. I think we mostly, where the drums are concerned, and I feel like it sits and sounds a lot better when we play it live.
Something in my head is telling me that we recorded it in your basement, at least one of the versions of it. Whether or not it's this one, that's really funny. All right. Well, that's what comes of 20 years of playing in a band where you drink for free. So this one's called Sycamore.
No place for a big
hello everyone. How you doing today? I'm doing well. The type of music I was just playing is the classical music of the Great Highland Bagpipe. So, the trivia question is, what is the name of the classical music of the bagpipe?
All right. This next song is Rosalie, and Brian just reminded me that this was actually the very first song I performed with the band. So I guess we had started writing this together in that rehearsal space. We were rehearsing in Hamilton, I want to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and my first show with the band was Celtic Classic.
In Bethlehem, PA, that's right.
Yep.
Correct, in Bethlehem, PA. And yeah, and this was the very first song of that set. So it was good in a sense. No one had anything they knew really to judge me against, you know, from what they remembered of how the song should sound with James in the band. So that sort of, I think, disoriented everyone enough. And then by the time they knew any better, we were halfway through the set, and everything was fine. But yeah, this is kind of a similar song, I think, to Sycamore, in that, you know, it has the vocal harmonies and another sort of, you know, PAC friendly sort of song that works well in venues like that, and kind of you know, showcases that side of the band, you know, with the four guys singing harmony up front, and kind of song that appeals to, you know, a broad range of people, you know, from young to old. And yeah.
Sure. I thought it was cool. It was kind of like a conscious choice of ours to make this the first song that you played live, because it was a song that you had some ownership in, rather than you joining the band and coming in and just sort of being the new guy playing music that you weren't really involved in the creation of. So I thought it was cool that, like, the first statement was, you know, not only are you new, but this song is brand new and the sound is brand new, and this is kind of, you know, how we were going to introduce you. And it's cool. It was a little nerve-wracking because we'd never played it live before, but this one's got the highest notes I think Mark has to sing every night, so he always tells me I can't put it near the beginning of the set because he has to warm his voice up before he gets up to that high B flat. Trev, there's a specific story here, right? Rosalie was someone that you knew or someone you knew of, right?
Yeah, it was my ex-girlfriend's grandfather who got lost had dementia, was a veteran, had dementia, got lost in the woods for like 3 days or something like that, and survived. But he was, you know, he was a guy who spent a lot of time in the woods, and he sort of knew how to fend for himself out there. You know, he was in a pretty disoriented state. Yeah, and I remember around the time, I remember reading a story about, you know, someone leaving an old folks' home here in London, Ontario, where I live, and going out into the woods, that type of thing, and there sort of being a manhunt situation going on. Yeah, I do like the lyrics in this one, sort of the way they sort of frame the situation a little differently, verse to verse. You know, one more old demented fool or a POW.
I think when we were writing it, at one point we played the whole song with the feel that we play, or most of the song with the feel that we play for just the very last chorus. Somehow the decision was made to kind of hold that off until the last chorus. But I always feel like when we get to that point and it drops into that last chorus, that it really kind of kicks hard and sells the message of the song. So I guess that was a good decision in the end. Thanks everybody for joining us for these awesome listening parties. This is kind of the last one that we really have scheduled in this format, but there's nothing saying that we won't find other old songs or other rarities or things to listen to.
2 weeks from now, we're doing a little listening party for our new album, The Archer's Parade. We did a listening party for it, but we went through track by track a few months ago. But we're actually releasing it. We're releasing it to the world So far, only folks who supported our Kickstarter have access to the album, and people who came out to our sort of limited number of shows we played in support of the album and bought a record there. So we're actually going to be releasing this thing into the world. So it'll be available on iTunes and through our web store and all that kind of stuff.
I think we're probably going to make it a more traditional listening party in that we're just going to kind of play through the album start to finish with a bunch of lyric videos, and then we'll all just kind of be hanging out in the chat to kind of take people's comments and, you know, share stories that way. And we can all just kind of listen to the record start to finish together, and it'll be available on Spotify and Pandora and Amazon and Apple Music and Google Play and all kinds of places. And as Trevor mentioned, through our website, enterthehaggis.com, as well on that date. So if you haven't gotten your hands on a copy of it yet, that will be the day to do it. Thank you everybody for taking part in these discussions with us. It's been a real blast. It's been fun revisiting this music. And thank you for contributing to our virtual tip jar at enterthehaggis.com/tipjar. We want to thank James Campbell for joining us once again. James, thanks for staying up late on a school night.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. Nice to be part of the story, the ongoing story again.
The ongoing saga.
Indeed, indeed.
So without any further ado, this one is called Rosalie. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, Rosalie, what's your game? Are you fighting in the war again? Carmen holds a cross and chain. Rosalie don't belong. His paper hand salutes some birds, but his mind's in Normandy. Golden star on a flannel shirt, but his mind's in Normandy. These commands are nothing that they'd understand. Oh, Rosalie, what's your game? Are you fighting the war again? Carmen holds her cross and chain. Rosalie don't belong. For 50 years he kept his cool, like a one-man company. What else can a soldier do? Like a one-man company, all alone, with demons that they'll never know. Oh, Rosalie, what's your game? Are you fighting the war again? Carmen holds her cross and chain. Rosalie don't belong. And again the dogs are on his boots, like a POW. One more old demented fool, or a POW laugh and say that they're all the same at that age. This is Rosalie. What's your game? Are you fighting the war again? Carmen holds her cross and chain. Rosalie don't belong. Oh, Rosalie, what's your game? Are you fighting the war again? Carmen holds does the time go? Self-righteous and rude, leaving the table with a mouth full of food. Where does the time go? So top of the wine, tell me a good one. Something about horses and the deputy son. Light the joint like a firefly captured. Laugh about all that we've done. In a basement apartment with no clock on the stove, but always some company around. Yeah, we were never lonely. So top of the wine, tell me a good one. Something about horses and the deputy son. Light the joint like a firefly captured. Laugh about all that we've done. Since the rapture, since the rapture, with a dog in the yard, cobwebs in the basement and an old wooden barn. Yeah, that's our dream of a farm.